Hi there, I'm back. I'm Vicki Mizell. I am a educator, trained as a psychologist. I have a master's in psychology. I worked 10 years as a therapist, as a counselor, 30 years as a teacher, 33 as a memory teacher. So, what I was saying in the last 20-minute episode is that I had started out as a fairly good memory, but didn't have a large visual memory and didn't have great recall. And by the end of my 20 minutes of talking about teaching memory training for 5 years through the Gifted program, I also was teaching older adults for 5 years through the community college. And I was just bubbling up, teaching memory training every day, that it was actually stimulating my brain. What I've now come to learn is that I was growing new dendrites and literally what I coined brain sprouts. So that's what's come clear to me in these last 30 years, is that this particular memory program causes neural sprouting in the brain. They call that neurogenesis. When I first started, the world was still in the dark ages, thinking the brain could not regenerate, but that's no longer true. I mean, it's never been true. It's just people didn't know about it, and now they find that the brain can regenerate. I want to tell you a couple of stories of brain regeneration. One, the memory course, which I just told you about. I have a lady friend named Lynn Charnay. We met about 37 years ago. I was teaching memory training through the Learning Annex. The Learning Annex was a publication in about 26 different states throughout the United States. And they would market your programs for you and then hire the teachers, so you'd get a percentage of the class. And that was easy for me. I would teach about 3-4 classes a month, and then I'd get private clients out of that. And then I was a regular teacher during the school year, and then summer times I would do the majority of my acting. So that was kind of my little life for a long time. So I met Lynn. She was going through a divorce. It was affecting her memory. And her friends all said, you must have Lynn come to your Learning Annex memory course, because she's up for a part playing in a play that a friend of hers had written for her, playing Garbo. So Lynn was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? And so I said, your friends are looking out for you, and they've invited me to invite you to my get-together. So she came to my class. I taught her the memory system. This was 37 years ago. And she was able to learn it. She was able to study her lines, and she did indeed was in the play doing Garbo. Well, Lynn is still alive, very, very much alive. She's 98 years old now, and she's still performing, especially on her birthday, April 1st. She does a cabaret singing songs, duets for her birthday at Don't Tell Mamas in New York. So recently I've been flying in on April 1st to watch her perform. She also performs September 10th on her son's birthday. So about, I would say maybe 3 years ago, Lynn was having some trouble sleeping, and she just wasn't as readily cognizant as she had been in the earlier years. She still eats pretty well, but she doesn't have a diet that is restricted. So she's really in very good shape for 98 years old. And she also exercises. She does yoga once a week and Pilates once a week, and she's been doing that now for at least 22 years, as long as her granddaughter's been alive. But more recently, in the last year, she changed her caregiver. She had to a live-in caregiver who speaks Russian. And Lynn's parents were born in Russia, so she learned Russian when she was very young. She knew it fluently, but she hadn't been practicing it. So now Lynn is practicing Russian morning, noon, and night. She's translating from Russian to English and English to Russian, and you wouldn't believe it. Her brain is so sharp now, and she's not having these, quote, senior moments anymore. And so it really is remarkable that the brain, no matter how old you are, it's still growing. It's still continuing. It's still really relying on being stimulated. And so she's just improved so well. And I said that to her son the other night. We were all at her house for New Year's. And instead of staying up till 5 in the morning like she usually does, around 2 in the morning at 98, she said, "I think I'm tired. I think everyone needs to go home now." And I said to her son, "Her memory has improved so much." And he said, "You noticed that too?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "She's, coding and decoding between English and Russian all day long. And then she speaks French. She sings in French. She sings in Russian. She sings in English." So she's doing remarkably well. And so I'm telling you that story because no matter how old you are, if you're using your foreign language or a musical instrument or this memory training technique or a different technique that you like, all of it's going to stimulate your brain. People ask me, what is the number one client? What's your number one client? And in 40 years, I've taught kids, I've taught older people, I've taught dementia, I've taught brain injured, I've taught Alzheimer's. But I think the number one client really is the kids. The kids of a parent or aunt or uncle or father who has some kind of memory problem. And the kid could be 30 years old, 40, 50, 60 years old. But if you take the opportunity I have 10 memory lessons that I provide for people when they want to really, really study with me. And I do it once a week for 10 weeks. I include the audio series of the MP3s, my book. I have radio shows too that I include all as part of the same package price. And the other thing too is if you learn the memory system and all 10 of the lessons in the memory system, then you in turn can teach your parent or your aunt or uncle or loved one who's ailing. I teach you how to work with them, or you can even bring them into the lesson as well, and I can model it and show you how to work with them. We can all work together, a couple of sessions together. So it's kind of like you can have a few lessons, give them a few lessons, you can be included in those lessons. If you have children, you can bring the children in, do a couple lessons that way, so that you're really getting the problem solving to whatever issues that you're confronted with. And the lessons start out with how the mind works, how we naturally learn, how this memory system fits in with how you naturally learn, the method of association, how to use it for lists and goals. Then the next part is the sounds like method. So I teach you how to take any piece of information and turn it into a tangible picture, because once something's tangible, it changes from short-term into long-term memory. Then we have advanced vocabulary and regular vocabulary that also helps with spelling. Then we have how to remember names. I mean, how many of you say, "Oh my gosh, I can always remember a face, but I just can't remember a name"? I explain how and why that works with you. And in fact, if you want to give me a call or send me your email, you can call me or text me at 917-547-8822. That's 917-547-8822. Or email me at vmizell, V like the first letter of my first name, Mizell, M-I-Z-E-L, at AOL.com. Yes, I'm a dinosaur. AOL.com. So vmizell@AOL.com. And I will send you a sheet on the best way to be able to remember and recall people's names. Then the next one is large amounts of information. So large amounts of information is anything that's a page or more in length. So if you're an actor reading a script, if you're presenting and giving a speech, if you're a student and you're reading pages and pages of information that's definitely a page or more in length, and you need to organize that information, large amounts of information is the best way you can do that. And then from there, you can just do variations on a theme, or you could learn the number system. There's a number system you can do. You can memorize cards in a deck. I had a boyfriend over 40 years ago that listened to that audio tape on playing cards in a deck and memorizing the cards, and he used to drive to Las Vegas from San Diego, and he would play blackjack, and he'd come back winning. I said, well, why are you getting so good at this? He said, I'm listening to the tape on how to get good at remembering blackjack and how to doing that. So it was really fun for him. And then there's one on absent-mindedness. And then the very last CD or MP3 is on absent-mindedness, relaxation and receptivity, where there's just a complete course review. So you get all that included as part of the program. So that's the memory system. And as I said, that everyone's presented with different kinds of memory problems. So whatever memory problem you have, there's a solution that is available using this memory system. Now, the other thing is that if you've had an injury, a lot of people have had car accidents, people have had been in comas, people have had brain injury from car accidents, even change in medication can affect the brain, all these kinds of things. I've been through them myself. I've been in 2 car accidents, well actually 3 very severe car accidents. 2 were really life-threatening and took me 6 to 8 years to recover. Now the first time I recovered just from the memory system alone. The second time I was in a car accident, I was already in my 60s. And I used the memory system, but I also used nutrition and I used hyperbaric oxygen. And then I did detox foot baths, infrared sauna, and colonics, which some of you don't know about, but it's like a professional enema, and it really helps when you're detoxing the body. You want to make sure that everything gets and stays out of the body. It doesn't go back up into the liver or to the large intestine. When people call me and they say, look, you know, my mom's got dementia. I don't know what to do. How many of you are experiencing something like that with your mother or your father or even yourself? Well, the first thing to do is relax, is literally take a moment and relax. And remember that we are now in 2024. We are no longer in 1976, 1980, not even 1990, not even 2000. The brain can regenerate. That means you're not stuck with the brain that you have. That's what Daniel Amen says. You know, you change your brain, you change your life. That's really the truth. So the exercise and stimulation is really number one. That's really the number one most important thing. Number 2 is making sure you drink enough water, good water, healthy water, and good proteins, healthy foods, very little sugar, very little carbohydrates, unless they're complex carbohydrates like bran and brown rice and things that are going to be healthy for you, not empty carbohydrates and empty calories of candy and sugar. But even a dementia client that I work with once a week or twice a week now for a year, even though she eats cookies and peanut butter sandwiches, she's still improving, and at least she's not getting worse. You know, they say if you're in physical therapy, if you're not getting worse, then you're improving. And some people are just taking vitamins, but they're not doing the memory exercises, and some of them are still declining. So you want to make sure that you're on the increase then with the stimulation of the brain rather than the decrease. So relaxing, number one, increasing the stimulation, increasing the nutrition. But then there are some pretty amazing things that you can do now, and I want to spend a couple minutes talking about something that I started doing a couple years back when I had gotten actually poisoned from paints and lacquers and pesticides to the point that I had gotten chemical dementia. And I thought, I can't afford chemical dementia when I'm a memory expert and I've got another 30, 40 years of memory training to do and clients to serve. So here's what I learned. There's something called NAD. There's a very long scientific name for it, but the short version is NAD. And the best way to explain what NAD does is think of little dendrites in the brain that are all shriveled up. Their thinking's not good, they've lost their elasticity, they're just all shriveled up and drying out. And you bring in the NAD, and basically you're making these dendrites fat and happy and moving again and transmitting again and communicating again and bringing back longevity and vitality. That's the short version of what NAD does. Now you can take it in an oral form, you can take it in a shot form, you can get it in a nasal form where you can actually just snort it up your nose like a nasal spray. But the most powerful and the best way to do it is in an IV form. It's a little bit expensive. It's about $100 a milligram, but 100 per 100 milligrams. And you want to ideally have between 500 and 750 milligrams. The way I did it is I started with 1,000 milligrams. I did it every day for 5 days. And then I took a break and then did 2 the next week. Now, I also did other things. I jumped in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I did the memory system while I was in the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I went home and did a detox foot bath. Same thing the next day, only then I did an infrared sauna. Same thing the next day, only I did a colonic. So I did variations of these detoxes as well as stimulation as well as the oxygen, the NAD, and the brain stimulation with the memory system. And within 2.5 weeks, I no longer had chemical dementia. I had completely wiped it out of my brain, my body, detox, cleaned it out. And the other thing was I didn't need my glasses. I wear these glasses all the time, especially when I'm driving, but I had misplaced my glasses, and I went into the doctor's office on the 3rd day of the NAD, and I said, my eyes have improved so much that I don't need my glasses anymore. So I encourage you to give me a call or an email. I will give you a free pamphlet or one sheet on how to remember names. But then give me a call and sign up for 10 lessons of the memory program. You can do mix and match of yourself, your loved one, your kids, your parents, and we can get whatever memory problem you're facing, we can get them solved. and give you the rehearsal, the practice, the time, the energy. You get all the MP3s, you get the radio shows, you get my book, and you get a brand new brain. So I welcome all of you. I'm Vicki Mizell. To give me a call at 917-547-8822 or vmizell, and get your one sheet on how to remember people's names so that you will always remember a face and remember the name, and get you your best brain and your best self for healthy longevity for the rest of your life. Thank you for listening.